Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. The day I got my acceptance letter from Harvard, my cousin Mandy fell to her knees in front of me, clutching her stomach and saying she was pregnant with my boyfriend's child, begging me to let them be together. I couldn't help but laugh. I was just trying to figure out how to break off my engagement with that jerk. Graduating from a top university and inheriting an empire worth billions? I mean, who wouldn't love that? Men would only slow down my money-making game after dying from overwork. I got a second chance at life. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw a pair of pitiful eyes looking back at me. My cousin Amy, in a simple white dress with a large suitcase, stood at my door. This was a month before the college entrance exam. Amy came up with an excuse about needing tutoring and showed up at my house. Amy, why didn't you tell your uncle ahead of time? He could have picked you up. My dad, Alan, squeezed me out of the way, pulled Amy into the house and then gave her my room. Rubbing my sore arm, I squinted. What did I do in my past life? The painful memories came rushing back. Proud and stubborn, I refused to give up my room, fought with my dad and ended up getting slapped. Because of that, my mom, Mary, had a big argument with Dad, and their already shaky relationship worsened. Not only that, but Amy got all flirty with my boyfriend, Charles, without ever asking for my study help. Angry about Amy taking everything, I couldn't focus on my studies. I obsessed over how to get Amy to leave my house and my man, so much so that I flunked my exams, missing out on an offer from a prestigious school. Then my parents divorced and I stayed with Dad. Amy framed me for pushing her down the stairs, and Dad kicked me out. She got a huge dowry and married Charles, who came from a wealthy family as well. After graduation, I couldn't find a decent job and ended up overworked in a factory, which led to my early demise. Now reborn, I gave up my room and moved to the attic on the third floor, not out of fear, but because I wanted that shot at a prestigious school. My past life taught me that being a stronger self is key. Living alone on the third floor was peaceful. I studied late into the night every day. I pretended not to notice all of Amy and Charles's sneaky business. Finally, exams wrapped up and I started getting offers from various colleges. I chose Harvard. It wasn't until I got the acceptance letter that I could finally breathe easy. I opened the attic window and exhaled. It was time to settle old scores with Amy, Charles, and my dad. When I came downstairs, I saw Amy in Charles's arms, looking all shy and playful. Seeing me, Charles hurriedly pushed Amy aside and walked over. Helen, you finally came down. You've been busy with your studies lately and ignoring me. You owe me some time now. As he reached for me, I stepped back, keeping my distance. Looks like you've already got someone keeping you company. I glanced meaningfully at Amy. After an awkward moment, Charles acted carefree. Helen, what are you thinking? Amy and I are lose just because she's your cousin. Amy's face went pale, but I couldn't help but smile. Charles and I were from families that arranged our marriage when we were kids, so in my past life, I always thought of Charles as my future husband. It hurt when Amy took him away last time around. At this point, despite my attempts to stop it, Charles and Amy were already head over heels in love. But now, maybe because I wasn't around to speed things up, Charles was still only secretly seeing Amy. Playing along with Charles could make Amy uncomfortable, but the thought alone made me sick. How do I get rid of this engagement with Charles quickly? As I mulled it over, I came up with an idea. I gazed lovingly at Charles. Since I'll be marrying you anyway, why not just make it official now? Amy gasped. Why are you unwilling? Or do you think you should take my place and marry Charles instead? The words hit home, leaving Amy speechless, her lips trembling. Charles's face got awkward too. Clearly, he wasn't done enjoying his two-timing fun. I added fuel to the fire. Charles, I got into Harvard. Your mom will be thrilled. You're in Harvard? Charles's eyes lit up when I nodded, and his face broke into a wide grin. Wait here, I'm gonna tell my mom. Charles's family made their first big money in coal mining a few years back. Though the mining business has declined since, they diversified investments, building a solid base. Rich as they are, education never seemed their strong suit, and people often whispered behind their backs, calling them an upstart family. They've got cash but no class. Mandy, my aunt, loved bragging about my good grades wherever she went. Now that I got into Harvard, she'd probably want me in their family as soon as possible. As soon as Charles left my place, Amy kneeled before me, clutching her belly. Helen, I'm so sorry. I am pregnant with Charles's child. I know after all I did poke holes in the raincoat. Charles and Amy used my firm words to shut Amy up. How do you know? I smirked, saying nothing as I headed upstairs. Looks like there's a tough battle this afternoon. I needed some rest to recharge. A loud knock woke me. Then came my father's angry voice from outside. Why are you locking the door when you're home? All you do is study and sleep.
Iswer I'm raising a peak.
Why couldn't you be more like your cousin? She gets up and makes breakfast every day. Frowning, I strode to the door and yanked it open. My stern face stopped my dad's rant. He switched to anger. How dare you look at me like that? He raised his hand to slap me, but I quickly stepped downstairs, leaving him empty-handed. Downstairs, Aunt Mandy and Charles were laughing, really enjoying themselves. Their smiles grew even bigger when they saw me. Meanwhile, Amy, who was serving tea, had tears in her eyes. Apparently, Charles's family didn't know Amy was pregnant. They thought Amy was just incredibly capable. I never expected I'd have to break this news. Uncle, Aunt, I said, stepping up to Aunt Mandy. Mandy immediately noticed the Harvard acceptance letter in my hand. Then she handed it to Charles's father, who pulled me by the hand and said, Helen, you're amazing. I absolutely adore you. When my dad came down, she eagerly said to him, the kids aren't young anymore. How about we hold the wedding first and get the license when they reach the right age? What do you think? Hearing Aunt Mandy, my dad set aside his displeasure with me and squeezed out a smile. Of course, that's great. Then when do you think we should set the date? She asked, watching Charles's father and my dad start discussing when Charles and I should get married. I could only laugh. My mom wasn't even home yet, and they were blatantly disregarding her.
I glansde over at Amy.
She was staring straight at Charles. Normally, a smile from Amy would melt Charles, but now he sat up straight, ignoring her hints. In the face of interest, their love seemed like nothing. How about next month before Helen starts school? I think that works, someone suggested. Just then I spoke up. Uncle, Aunt, I want to marry Charles, but... I looked at Amy with an accusing gaze and said sadly, she secretly seduced Charles and even got pregnant with his child. My words stunned everyone. Helen, are you sure? But she's your cousin. I wish I was wrong, but she told me herself not long ago. At this moment, the eye drops I applied earlier finally came into play. Tears fell as I pretended to cry while sneakily observing Amy. In my dad's family, only he went to college and married my mom. He used my mom's family influence to start a group. However, my mom was the main person in charge, and my dad was just the nominal president. Dad's brothers' families were doing better under his secret help, but they couldn't compare to us. Amy had envied me since we were kids. If Amy didn't seize this chance to marry into wealth, I'd look down on her. Luckily, she didn't disappoint me this time. With everyone watching, Amy knelt before Aunt Mandy, crying, Uncle, Aunt, Charles and I genuinely love each other. Before they could react, Charles stood up impatiently. I took precautions. There's no way you're pregnant. With that, it confirmed everything. Charles, I don't know how this happened. Didn't you say you don't like Helen, that she's dull, and that you'd break off the engagement to be with me? You even said, shut up. Charles desperately slapped Amy's face. The next moment, my father kicked Charles in the gut. You disgraceful brat. You've shamed our family. Why are you hitting our son? Protested Aunt Mandy. It's obviously this wretch Amy seducing my son. You should be hitting her. She grabbed Amy by the hair. Alan quickly stepped in. Mandy, in her fury, scratched even Alan. Weary of getting scratched, Alan backed off and Amy got pinned to the ground and beaten. Suddenly, unable to dodge, Amy clutched her stomach. My baby. Red started pooling between her legs. Aunt Mandy, afraid of being charged, stopped and called an ambulance. Half an hour later, Amy was loaded into an ambulance, with the adults following in a panic. I sat on the couch watching, a cold smile on my lips. Right then I caught a menacing look from Alan. He turned suddenly, witnessing my smile. I instinctively stopped smiling but then realized I wasn't the same timid person from before. I boldly smiled back at him. Taken aback by my provocative look, Alan seemed ready to confront me, but with the ambulance waiting, he had no choice but to leave. Shortly after they left, my mom came back. She was wearing a fitted business suit, her hair pulled up. Even at 40, with fine lines around her eyes, she looked elegant. Her hair was a bit messy, suggesting she had rushed back. "Helen, your aunt said something happened. What's going on?" Busy with work, her tone was slightly cold, but concern filled her eyes. Sadly, I didn't notice this concern in my past life. Back then, I never thought that my mom worked so hard for me. I just felt she didn't love me. I was rebellious, constantly defying her even when she gave up her shares to divorce Alan and demanded only me. I stubbornly chose to stay with Alan, unwilling to lose to Amy. In the end, my disappointed mom left everything and went abroad. Thinking back, my nose tingled with emotion. "Mom!" I rushed into her embrace, holding her tight. "Mom, you're finally back." In my previous life, I rarely got close to my mom. Since my rebirth, we've grown closer. Yet our relationship still had some distance compared to usual mother-daughter bonds. My mom's body first stiffened, then relaxed, and she awkwardly patted my back. "Helen, did something happen to you?" I nodded and told her everything. Charles and Amy were secretly together, and they even had a baby. "This is outrageous." My mom was furious. "I'm going to make them answer for this today," she said, pulling me with her as we headed out. She drove us to the hospital. By the time we arrived, Amy was lying weakly on the hospital bed. They were all in the hospital room. The other three looked grim, but Alan was the only one fussing over Amy. "Amy, does it hurt? Are you hungry? If you're not feeling well, just tell Uncle." "My baby." Amy was touching her belly, tears streaming down. Alan's tone softened even more. "The baby is fine. You just need to take care of yourself. Don't worry about anything else." "Thank you, Uncle." My mom, unable to listen anymore, pushed the hospital door open and sarcastically said, "You didn't treat Helen this sweetly. People might think Amy's not your niece but your love child." My mom was pretty much my voice saying what I wanted to say. No surprise, Alan got mad. Not very competent in business, he loves being hot-tempered more than my mom. "Mandy, what nonsense are you talking about?" I've seen this version of Alan many times, but this time I caught a glimpse of something on Alan's face, guilt I'd never noticed before. I glanced at Alan, then at Amy on the bed. A bold idea popped into my head. Am I talking nonsense? Amy has the nerve to steal Helen's fiancé, acting shamelessly, and you still protect her? Do you even care about us at all? Amy is just young and naive, and she's not an out. She's my niece. Seeing the two were about to start a fight, I hurriedly took my mom's hand. Mom, coming to her senses, took a deep breath, held back her anger at Alan, and turned to the other two. Mandy, who had been watching the scene, suddenly looked tense. "Well, your son messed up. This marriage is off." Before Mandy could respond, Alan quickly stepped in. "It'd be a waste. How about letting Amy marry Charles in Helen's place?" "No way." Mandy's eyes widened. Immediately Helen got into Harvard. "What about Amy? She's from an ordinary family. We don't want a daughter-in-law like that. In my opinion, Amy should just get rid of the baby and go home, and we'll act like none of this happened. We can't let a disgrace like this affect the harmony between our families, right?" Mandy looked at my mom. My mom looked at Alan's furious face. She comfortingly patted my hand and then calmly said, "I guess that could work." Seeing my mom give in, Mandy breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay then, I'll have the doctor prepare for the abortion." Saying this, Mandy was about to make arrangements. Suddenly, Amy, who had been speaking weakly from the bed, jumped off and clutched Charles's leg. "Charles, can you really be so cruel to me?" she cried like a weeping willow in the rain. Charles seemed torn seeing this. Mandy was furious. "Don't touch my son." She moved to pull Amy away, but then two figures burst in. "You dare bully my daughter? I'll fight you." It was Amy's parents. Obviously, they had just received the news and rushed over. Seeing Amy being bullied, they pushed Mandy aside and started to fight her. With Amy's parents' strength, Charles's parents couldn't stand a chance. Seeing his parents getting beaten, Charles jumped in too. The six of them ended up rolling on the floor in a brawl. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. My laughter caught Alan's attention, and he strode towards me angrily. "Helen, you've gone too far. If it weren't for you, this wouldn't have happened." "Me? What's this got to do with me? Isn't it Amy herself being shameless? You shut up, I said. Why should I? Is Amy really your love child? Not your niece like my mom suggested. As soon as I said that, Alan's face turned livid. Rubbish. I'm going to teach you a lesson today. Alan raised his hand towards me. Mom instinctively moved to protect me. Try it. You dare stop me, I'll hit you too. A cold, mocking voice floated in from outside the ward. This is hilarious. It's my first time seeing a dad who can't stand his own daughter being happy. I turned around and saw a face both unfamiliar and familiar. The boy's features were sharp and strikingly handsome. Scratches on his face and a bit of blood at the corner of his mouth added a certain allure rather than diminishing his charm. It was my high school classmate, Sam. After we graduated, I lost touch with many of my classmates. He seemed familiar because before I got a second chance at life, I happened to meet him once. I was leaving work as usual when two men stopped me on the street. Sam showed up in a flashy car. He honked the horn once and the men ran off scared. I thanked Sam and he said, "No need to thank me." That's when I dug up a few scraps of memory I had about Sam, grateful but embarrassed since my high school classmate was doing so well. I brushed away those memories and looked at his face again. He wasn't as mature as when I last saw him in my previous life. A bit more youthful but still handsome. What are you, some punk? This is family business, not for you to meddle in. Today I'll teach my daughter a lesson. Alan, with his fragile pride, couldn't handle being mocked by an outsider. He rolled up his sleeves and moved to hit me. My mom shielded me, but he didn't hesitate. He really might hit her too. I tried to stop his hand, but another hand beat me to it, grabbing his arm firmly. It was Sam. A furious Alan tried to take on Sam, but his hand was stuck, totally unable to move. They stood locked in a standoff, Sam looking relaxed, Alan's face turning a shade of plum. Finally, the medical staff noticed the commotion and rushed into the room to break things up. Alan pulled back his hand and turned to look at Amy. I was about to thank Sam but saw he had already turned away, disappearing down the long hallway. His figure looked so thin, surrounded by loneliness. Half an hour later, with the reassurance of the hospital staff, everyone finally calmed down a bit, except for my dad, who pretended to care while staying out of it all. The others looked a mess. Faces were streaked, everything was in chaos, and it was quite a scene. Charles's family had their chins up high and were acting arrogant. Amy's parents, meanwhile, kept their heads down, uneasy and worried. Their biggest dream was for Amy to marry into a wealthy family, and just now they knocked that chance flat. The baby in Amy's belly has to go, Charles's father shouted, anger bubbling over. Aunt Mandy chimed in. I'll die before I let Amy marry in. That's not right. Amy's dad protested. Charles got Amy pregnant. If you guys don't own up, we'll make a scene at your company till people know. His words made Charles's parents' faces go tight. 200,000? That's a life. You think you can buy a life with a measly 200,000? Charles's father cut Amy's mom off coldly. 500,000. As soon as he said it, David and Mary eagerly nodded. Deal. On the hospital bed, Amy just faintly cried and passed out for real. Sadly, even if she passed out, she couldn't escape her fate of facing surgery. After dealing with Amy's family, Charles's exhausted parents turned to my mom. Once Amy's out of the picture, how about Charles? Mary's Helen's eyes gleamed briefly. Depends on how Charles behaves. Don't worry, Aunt Mandy said, pulling Charles closer. If he messes around, I'll break his legs. Charles nodded half-heartedly, promising, but his eyes kept darting toward where Amy was taken. Without chatting much with Aunt Mandy, Mom took me out of there in the car. As Mom drove, she asked, What do you think about marrying Charles? No way. I don't want that kind of jerk. Just thinking about Charles, he made me sick with utter revulsion. He's a cheating, weak guy who is never responsible. There's not a single good thing about him. In my past life, I must have been out of my mind to fight with Amy over a piece of trash. Seeing my face, some of Mom's worry lines softened. What do you want to do now? I'm thinking about breaking the engagement with Charles, I said. Dragging him along might hurt him and Amy more. But just the idea of being called Charles's fiancé made me nauseous. Mom, if Amy aborts the baby, won't Charles's family latch onto me again? I voiced my concern. She smiled at me reassuringly. Don't worry, leave it to Mom. When we got home, Mom quickly called Aunt Mandy. Did Amy have the abortion yet? Not yet. The doctor said they have to wait until she wakes up and checks her condition first before the procedure. Frankly, I think she's faking it exactly to seduce her own sister's boyfriend. She can't be much of a person. Don't go soft on her. Charles can have plenty of kids with Helen when they are married. After the call, Mom looked at me. Before I could even ask, she said, Charles is an only child and his parents went through a lot to have him. It's rumored Charles's dad has issues in that department, so Aunt Mandy might not push Amy for the abortion because of family concerns. A glimpse sparked in my eyes. Mom gently tapped my forehead, smiling. Smart. With that, Charles's family won't come after us. And even if Amy has the baby, they won't accept her. Hearing that, I looked at Mom with pure admiration. Mom, you're amazing. She hugged me, stroking my hair. No one can bully my daughter. Feeling her warmth made my nose tingle. She had said the same in my past life. And how did I respond then? I had said, if you really don't want me bullied, you should have helped me get Charles back. But Helen, Charles isn't worth it. It didn't matter. I liked him anyway. I was like a person possessed. My only wish was to tear Amy and Charles apart. Unable to convince me, Mom desperately sought out Charles's parents, only to be looked down on. No surprise there. After all, why was I clinging to Charles despite everything? Having a daughter like me, no wonder my mother was looked down upon. Helen, are you okay? Sensing my emotional shift, Mom asked with concern. Leaning into her embrace, I muttered, Mom, I think Dad doesn't deserve to be my dad. Just like before, there was always something keeping Mom and Dad slightly apart. While Mom worked hard all day, he spent her money and showed off. Looking back, their relationship was strained and only stayed together for my sake. But realizing now, I don't need an indifferent father. I hoped Mom would divorce Dad, but she never did. She hugged me tightly for a long time before letting out a sigh. It was a bit disappointing, but I got it. Last life, my mom asked for a divorce from my dad after a year. By then, Charles, Amy, and my dad had driven me to a breakdown. She was totally done with my dad and wanted to take me away. But right now, besides standing up for Amy, Dad hadn't done anything else unforgivable. As much as I wanted to cut ties with my dad, I knew some things just couldn't be rushed. That afternoon, Mom went out to prep for my graduation party. I called all the staff over and told them to throw out all of Amy's stuff. Yep, I'd held out and put up with Amy for my studies, but from now on, no one's gonna get the chance to hurt me again. Once Amy's things were cleared out, the staff cleaned my room, and I moved back from the attic. In the evening, Mom returned, and soon after, so did Dad. He looked at us, his usual cocky attitude replaced with a sheepish look. He approached Mom, holding her hand. I was just mad at the hospital earlier. Don't be angry with me. Usually, even when he knew he was in the wrong, Dad would never apologize. He definitely wanted something now. Mom pulled her hand back, looking indifferent. Seeing you like this, Amy didn't end the pregnancy, did she? Dad looked awkward, having his intentions called out. Charles got checked. Low sperm count. It's tough for them to have kids. We had no choice here. Mom stared at him, confronted by her calm. His guilt turned into rage. It's Helen's fault. She couldn't win Charles over since Amy is carrying Charles's baby. Why not let Amy marry him? Mom was stubborn too, and her face turned cold. Alan, I don't care for this marriage. But what do you mean by that? Helen isn't likable, but Amy is your favorite niece, right? Dad slammed the table, standing up in anger. Look at her as if I owe her a fortune. What's so likable about that? Unlike Amy, who brings me tea, watches over me, and even shut up. Mom's chest heaved with anger, worried for her health. Quickly stepped in. Mom, don't be mad. If Dad doesn't care for me, it's fine. I still have you. Mom took a deep breath to calm down, ignoring Alan. She took my hand and led me upstairs. There she looked at me. Your dad. She started but couldn't finish. I held her hand tight. Mom, I don't see him as my dad. He never cared for me, never looked after me, or attended a parent-teacher meeting. None of it. He's never shown an ounce of affection, only disdain. But with Amy it's different. He acts like a real dad to her. Sometimes I think. I paused, sucking in air at the suspicion. He may think Amy's more his daughter than me, like I'm just in her way. Helen, my word. Stunned Mom. You are your father's child. Amy might as well not be your dad's too. Self-centered, always trying to leech off me for his brothers. He sees you and me as outsiders, but Amy's not your dad's kid. Trust me. If he doesn't cherish you, then I will. Doubly. I nodded, pushing aside those thoughts. Instead, I shifted gears. Dad wants Amy to marry Charles, and Charles's parents accepted her because she's pregnant. No way. Mom shook her head. Charles's parents are calculative. They might want Amy to have the baby quietly, then hand it over to you and Charles using your dad to convince us. But there's no way your dad would let Amy suffer that. He wants me to persuade Charles's family to let her marry in. I'd never do that. So our argument earlier probably shut him up. I couldn't help but give Mom a thumbs up. You're amazing, I said. Of course, she beamed. Your graduation party's in 3 days. I'll text you the hotel address. You worry about inviting your friends. Leave the rest to me. During the party, I'll announce your engagement with Charles. Okay, Mom. In my room, I felt a bit puzzled. Mom was even more capable than I imagined. If she was so certain Amy wasn't Dad's, maybe I was wrong. Shaking my head, I brushed this off and picked up my phone. I sent out invites for the party to close friends. By the end, I thought of Sam. We were in the same class, but I barely remembered him. He always sat in the back, either asleep or on his phone. Teachers left him alone. He was constantly in fights, and his parents were often called in. A classic rebel, but he was good-looking, so his desk was always full of love notes, which he routinely dumped without glancing at. Our paths hardly crossed, but in 2 lifetimes he'd helped me both times. After pondering, I decided to text Sam an invite since I didn't know him that well. I went for a polite tone. I'm having a graduation party in 3 days. Are you free? To my surprise, he replied quickly with just one word. Sure. Several of my close friends were having graduation parties around that time, regardless of how their exams went. That day, as I was getting ready to head out, my dad gave me a once-over from where he was sitting on the couch. His eyes narrowed. Helen, what's up? I asked coolly. My dad frowned and said, your cousin is still recovering in the hospital, and you're thinking of going out to party? By that logic, since she's still bedridden, shouldn't you be glued to her bedside instead of drinking tea at home? My retort made my dad scowl. I was up late last night and couldn't manage today. Eager to leave, I didn't bother arguing. As I reached the door, I heard him again. Make sure you find time to visit your cousin. Honestly, it's not really about checking on Amy. He's probably hoping Amy will talk some sense into me. Ignoring him, I stepped out. After attending a friend's graduation party, I asked the driver to take a detour to the hospital on my way back. When I arrived, Amy was on the bed eating fruit that David and Mary fed her. Wow, Amy, something else. She's bound to marry into wealth, one said dismissively, adding, what's the use of Helen being smart? She can't even keep a guy. When you and Charles get married, make sure your uncle gives you a hefty dowry. I walked in at just the right moment saying, but Charles's mom just called me. She said there's no way Charles will marry Amy. Once she has the baby, they're sending her back to the countryside. The room fell silent, their color draining at my words. Helen, given the circumstances, even if you marry Charles, you'll have him in person but not in heart. Mary's smugness quickly turned to dismay as she began. Helen, you've always been fortunate, never lacking anything. But Amy, she's different. Can you just leave Charles for her? Mary pleaded. Amy started crying. Helen, as your cousin, can you please let me have this one? David remained firm. Helen, even if you refuse to cancel your engagement to Charles, your dad will find a way to have Amy marry him instead. If you hold on, you'll end up embarrassing yourself. These 3 really coordinated their act, using both carrot and stick. If it were the old me, nay even weak, I might have thought I was at fault. What do you mean by leave you be? It's Amy who shamelessly seduced my fiancé and got pregnant. I'm cursed to have anything to do with people like you. Listen, Amy, whatever tricks you have up your sleeve, I'm not backing out of this marriage with Charles. Have your baby, and once it's born, your child will call me mom while you stay in the shadows as just aunt. My sass left them dumbfounded. Just then, a woman delivering food accidentally dropped a bowl. I'm sorry I'm clumsy, she apologized, flustered while picking up the pieces and hurting herself. I couldn't just stand by. Let me help, I said, moving forward to assist her. After helping with the broken pieces, I stood to throw them away. When I glanced at the woman's face, I was stunned. Her resemblance to Amy was uncanny. The speculation I had been trying to suppress resurfaced. Realizing I'd been staring, the woman dropped her gaze. Thank you, she said. No worries. I patted her comfortingly on the shoulder, suddenly taking a strand of hair as well. Outside the room, I ran into Charles. He looked elated. Helen, I'm so relieved. You don't mind Amy having my baby, and you're okay with being the child's mom. He promised he'd treat me well as he gazed at me lovingly, clearly having overheard my earlier words. How blind was I in my past life to resent Amy for taking such a dim-witted away. And what about Amy? I intentionally raised my voice. Once she has the baby, just give her some money, Charles said carelessly. More outbursts erupted from the room, and Amy fainted. Real or not, I didn't care. I looked at Charles impassively. I only said those things to rile Amy up. Once you started fooling around with her, we were done. I continued. Let your parents know we're through, or they'll keep spreading rumors about me being the future daughter-in-law of your family. It's embarrassing enough being linked to you all. Ignoring Charles's reaction, I walked away. The day before my graduation party, my mom and I were back from picking out dresses. I found Amy and her parents lounging in our living room. They were sprawled on the couch, snacking and watching TV. The place was a mess with shells and spilled drinks. What are you doing here? I asked, looking at them. David sunk deeper into the sofa. Helen, what's with that tone? We're family, and with Amy just out of the hospital, she needs rest. Where else would she go? Just then, I noticed our staff moving my belongings out of my room. Seeing my look, Amy innocently said, Helen, Uncle said I need a good environment to recover, so can you sleep in the attic or guest room? Kicking me out of my own room without even... Unbelievable. I was furious. I was about to reply when my mom interjected. Guards, get this trio out of here. You dare? Don't you know who I am? I'm the older brother of the head of your household. Lay a finger on me and you're all fired. David blustered, but the guards paid no attention. After all, this villa was my grandparents' gift to my mom. Thrown out, the three of them cursed on the doorstep of our villa, smirking. I warned them, keep this up and I'll call the cops. I flashed my phone, and the moment 911 was dialed, they shut right up. We got up from the ground, grabbed our few belongings, and started to leave. I stopped Amy. What do you want now? Amy couldn't hold it in anymore. She clutched her stomach, her eyes full of weariness and resentment. Don't you dare hurt my child. I laughed coldly. Just having a kid won't get you into Charles's family. They care a lot about their reputation. The only way they'll let you in is if everyone knows you're carrying Charles's child. Amy looked touched. Why are you being so generous? But she wasn't entirely naive. Helen, you're doing this on purpose. You want Charles's family to go down too. Yes, I'm doing it on purpose. You have the chance. Take it or leave it. Not long after David's family left, my dad came back into the living room. He and my mom had a huge fight because of me, because of Amy. It started with Amy seducing Charles and spiraled into so much more. My dad felt humiliated because for years my mom could earn money and overshadow him. My mom, besides feeling I was wronged, was hurt by my dad's years of silent treatment. Even my always composed mom lost it. Alan, you're weak and useless. You're all talk and no action. You don't stand up for your wife and kids. You're a heartless fool. You want to die. My dad raised his hand to hit her, but of course, a bodyguard stopped him mid-swing. Beat Alan hard. The harder you hit, the bigger the bonus. The next sounds in the living room were Alan's screams. I had wanted to do this for a long time. In my past life, I could have made a good life for myself despite attending an average school, but Alan, Amy, and Charles kept sabotaging everything. No matter what job I found, they'd use their power to ruin it. Even though I was naive, I never wronged anyone. It was those three making my life hell. From the moment I got a do-over, I wanted to beat Alan to a pulp. But doing it now, I didn't get the satisfaction I expected because of my mom. Her face was full of pain. Mom, I called gently, holding her hand. I'm fine, she forced a smile. When Alan was too beaten to speak, she told the bodyguards to stop. As they let Alan off, I still felt unsatisfied. Mom calmed me, saying, "Your graduation party is tomorrow. We don't want things getting out of hand." I said nothing more. Alan was sent to the hospital, and Mom had someone guard his room. That night, my mom's room stayed lit. Worried, I went to her door and saw her taking down photos of her and Dad, reminiscing, then ripping them apart. I realized I'd only seen Dad's faults and not their past. Noticing me, Mom beckoned me over. I nestled into her arms. "When I wanted to marry your dad, your grandparents disapproved," she said from above my head. "They thought his background and abilities weren't up to par. But I was taken by his sweet words and determined to marry him. Now I see it was a mistake." "Mom, everyone makes mistakes," I replied, my head resting against her. "What's important is recognizing and fixing them. Besides," I added playfully, "without Dad, you wouldn't have such a smart daughter, would you?" My joke brought a smile to her face. "Helen, if I divorced your dad, would you be okay with it?" she asked seriously. "Yes," I replied without a second thought. "And would you choose to stay with me?" "Absolutely." Her confidence returned. "After your graduation party, I'm asking for a divorce." "All right," I said as I hugged her and we drifted off. But after her breath steadied, I got up. I found a short hair of Dad's on the pillow and took it out of the room. The next morning, I made an excuse to go out, grabbed Amy's hair, and submitted samples for DNA testing between Amy, my dad, and the lady who brought meals. Once I got back, Mom and I headed to the hotel. By midday, guests began to arrive. Dad, recovering from his wounds, insisted on coming to my party. I was a bit worried he'd cause a scene, but Mom assured me Dad was too vain for that. True to her word, the man who usually ignored me showed up smiling, even though the bandages on his face couldn't hide his grin. "Alan, your daughter is quite talented. She takes after me," Dad boasted. Someone asked about his injuries and he lied smoothly. "She got into Harvard, so I drank a bit too much and took a tumble." Mom and I exchanged annoyed looks, struggling not to laugh. Got to hand it to him. He can sure spin a tale. Guests poured in and finally my grandparents arrived. After years of estrangement due to Mom marrying Dad, they'd quietly supported her career but rarely visited. "Finally, you're here," Mom sighed with relief, helping them inside. My classmates, the Charles family, Amy's family, they'd all arrived. The party was nearly full, yet I couldn't find Sam. Now I realized I might have acted impulsively. I had no idea how Sam's grades were or which college he got into, yet here I was about to invite him over. Just as I was thinking about it, I suddenly heard a familiar voice above me. "Where am I sitting?" I looked up and met Sam's handsome eyes. "I'll take you there," I said. As I said this, an uncontrollable smile spread across my face. I led Sam to the table where high school classmates were sitting. When the girls saw Sam, their lively chat suddenly stopped, and their faces turned red. "Helen, you're awesome. You even got the school heartthrob who never gets close to anyone to come." I just smiled at the comment and stayed quiet. Corporation is no small company, and most of the people at my school celebration were business partners. I followed my parents as they offered drinks to everyone at the table where the Charles family sat. Someone asked, "Why are you sitting with us?" My mom laughed and said, "Well, Helen and Charles have called off their engagement. It was just a joke from years ago, never to be taken seriously." Everyone smart knew not to press further. But Charles's parents weren't happy about it. Even though they kept it in, they didn't say anything. My mom wanted to save Charles's family some face, but I didn't. You can't expect to do something disgraceful and still have a graceful ending, right? I looked at Amy. She was clutching her stomach, torn between revealing her pregnancy with Charles's child. I decided to walk toward Charles. Halfway there, I suddenly stumbled, heading straight toward Amy. Just as I was about to fall on her, an arm wrapped around my waist. It was Sam catching me. "Thanks." I stood steady in Sam's arms and thanked him. Amy, barely having recovered from shock, exploded. She stood up, pointing at me, and accused, "Helen, you did it on purpose. You can't stand that I'm pregnant with Charles's child and want to harm my baby." The room erupted. Everyone quickly realized that I broke off the engagement because Charles cheated with my cousin, and now they had a baby on the way. Everyone looked at Charles's family with disdain. Charles's parents valued their reputation above all, and Aunt Mandy quickly denied it. Amy, what nonsense are you talking? Our Charles isn't someone you can just latch onto. With things as they were, Amy threw caution to the wind. Auntie, both you and I know who the father is. You can deny it all you want, but we can do a DNA test once the baby's born. Which I'll tear you apart. As things heated up between Charles's family and Amy's, my mom had the guards throw both families out. The chaos settled and everyone looked at me with sympathy, everyone except my dad. His face was dark, full of anger directed at me. After the party, as soon as we got home, my dad said, "How could you two be so wicked? Amy's in a tough spot since Charles's family doesn't accept her. Do you want to push her to her death? But didn't she bring this on herself?" I replied, "Helen, don't think I won't teach you a lesson." My dad strode toward me. The bodyguard stepped in, surrounding me protectively. "If you want another hospital stay, go ahead. I knew you were no good." "Enough." My mom, unable to take it anymore, interrupted him. "Alan, let's get a divorce." "Divorce? Are you joking?" My dad's voice was full of shock and disdain. Clearly, he never imagined that despite how he treated us, my mom would want to leave him. "Yes, a divorce," my mom said firmly. My dad finally grasped the truth and sneered. "Fine, but we split the assets in half." "No way. What have you done for this family other than indulging yourself?" I was upset, but my mom said, "All right, I'll have the lawyer draft the agreement." "Fine then." Once my dad went upstairs, my mom comforted me. "Helen, if we're doing this, we need to do it quickly. I can earn more money, and after all, he is your dad, so giving him some isn't the end of the world." She had a point, so I kept quiet for now. Seeing mom was all right, I told her I was going to my room. I met friends, but actually I went to the hospital. I hoped my guess was wrong so I could spare my mom more pain by letting Alan get some of the assets. At the hospital, I got the paternity test results. When I saw the results, I was so angry I could hardly breathe. I was right. Amy is indeed the child of Alan and the lunch lady. I immediately took the report home to show my mom. She was still mourning the marriage. When the realization hit her that dad had cheated and fathered a child even older than me, she was wrapped in fury. My mom, level-headed as always, even in anger, called my grandparents to tell them everything. They came with my 3 uncles. My dad was dragged out of bed during his nap by them and beaten. He had injuries already and was left barely conscious. My eldest uncle placed a divorce agreement in front of him, demanding he sign. Seeing it stated he was to leave with nothing, my dad refused to sign. My uncle sneered, "Alan, think this through. If you don't sign, I'll charge you with bigamy and put you behind bars. And more than that, anytime anyone from your side pops up, I'll beat them down. You'll never rise again." Finally realizing that Amy's matter was out, my dad, with a face of defeat, signed the paper. At this moment, my parents are officially divorced. From now on, he's no longer my dad. Alan got thrown out of the villa like trash. I was so mad. If it weren't for Helen, I'd have made sure he ended up in jail. My uncles were also furious. My mom couldn't even take a moment to be sad. She turned around to comfort my grandparents and uncles. In the end, my grandparents and uncles felt sorry for my mom and me, and insisted we stay with them for a while. At my grandparents' house, I felt a warmth I'd never experienced before. It was so comforting that I never wanted to leave. My mom felt the villa was bad luck, so she sold it below market value with over a month before Harvard started. My mom asked me, "What's your plan now?" I replied, "Mom, I want to intern at the company now that the trash is out of the way. Making money is what matters. I need to learn how to manage the company early to take over the family business." My mom smiled at my answer. That's exactly what I had in mind. She took me shopping for some work clothes. Wearing them with my hair tied back, I looked in the mirror and saw a bold and confident me. Nothing like the shy person I used to be. The next day, I went to the company with my mom. I watched her call the HR department and fire everyone. Alan had snuck into the company. Soon, my mom's phone was ringing off the hook in the CEO's office. We're related after all. Alan's mess has nothing to do with me. I broke ties with Alan and it's hard to find a job now. Can you please not fire me? When it came to interests, Alan's so-called brotherhood shattered. Not wanting to waste time, my mom blocked every single one of them. She then handed me off to a company mentor, and I had tons to learn. Each day in this busy time, I heard all about the drama in the Charles and Amy families. Because I wanted to, but because Charles's scandals were everywhere in our circles. After Amy announced she was pregnant with Charles's child at my graduation party, Charles's dad embarrassedly ordered him to stay away from her. But whether it was Charles's deep affection or Amy's tactics, he kept sneaking around with her. Aunt Mandy found out by accident and was so angry that she ended up in the hospital because of their behavior. Charles's company lost several big projects, causing huge losses, and seeing the stock prices drop daily overwhelmed Charles's dad. It didn't end there. Amy didn't know she was an illegitimate child until she found out the lady delivering meals was her mom. Enraged, she insulted Alan and her biological mom and lost her baby. Without the child, Amy lost any chance of marrying into Charles's family, and her status plummeted. Now humbled, she tried to win Alan back. After all, Alan still had money. Alan signed the divorce papers quickly with my mom because he was afraid of jail and my uncles. Plus, he had secret savings, a pretty good stash. But someone used to the high life like him couldn't handle watching his savings dwindle under his brother's influence. Alan got into gambling, and in just a month he lost everything. Penniless, he got kicked out by his family. I've heard from former neighbors that a disheveled Alan came looking for me and my mom at the villa, but it was already sold, and he couldn't find us. When people talked about their miserable situations, I found myself feeling nothing. We are worlds apart now. Regardless of how their future goes, I'll focus on becoming better and better. On Harvard's opening day, Charles stopped me at the gates. Helen, I've cut things off with Amy for good. We grew up together. Can you forgive me just this once? The ridiculous thing was that I saw a bit of genuine emotion in his eyes. Some people just don't know how to appreciate what's right in front of them, yet long for what they can't have.
Sorry, no forgiveness.
Even looking at Charles felt like a waste of life. I walked right past Charles and into the campus, spotting a familiar figure, Sam. He was holding an acceptance letter like he'd been waiting for me. When he saw me, he approached and asked, "Want to go to orientation together?" Sure, I nodded and walked with Sam. I won't dwell on the past or fear the future. I'll become who I want to be.